From a poor boy growing up in the rural hills of Kentucky, Ricky Skaggs rose to become a powerful icon of country music, amassing a massive fortune estimated at up to $20 million. At that peak, Ricky had everything the world desires: fame and wealth. But fate never gives anything away for free. Ricky Skaggs was forced to pay a price that cannot be measured. His absence from his children's childhood, long stretches of gnawing loneliness, and finally the moment he lay on an operating table when he had to place his very heart into the hands of destiny. For that reason, the story of Ricky Skaggs is not merely the journey of a star, but an epic ballad of sacrifice and collapse at the very edge of life and death until he was compelled to understand one simple truth. Real success is not found in a bank account, but in whether one can still make it back home in time. To truly understand the origins of that tear-soaked fortune, we must turn the clock back to the 1980s, the era when the money-printing machine called Ricky Skaggs began running at full throttle. Yet before redrawing the financial map of country music, Ricky was once trapped in a cruel Nashville paradox, the clash between talent and putting food on the table. Before that, Ricky had been a bluegrass prodigy, a genre known for its demanding musicianship, often described as a sacred temple of technique, yet a commercial dead end in terms of revenue. Keenly aware that the admiration of connoisseurs could not be converted into financial power, he chose a bold path. Ricky blended the refinement and complexity of bluegrass with the smoothness and accessibility of modern country. He did not cheapen his art. He packaged it for mass audiences. It was a gamble, a risky fusion between the raw simplicity of the mountains and the neon lights of the city. If he failed, he would lose both worlds. But if he succeeded, he would own them all. History quickly proved that Ricky Skaggs was one step ahead of Nashville. When Crying My Heart Out Over You climbed to number 1 in 1982, it was not merely a hit song, it was the moment the door to immense wealth officially swung open. From county fair stages and unstable incomes, Ricky entered a phase in which money began pouring in relentlessly, as Highway 40 Blues and then Country Boy went on to dominate radio airwaves across the United States. In an era when radio held absolute power, airplay meant audiences opening their wallets to buy records, and the printing presses at Epic Records were forced to run day and night to satisfy the market's thirst for the name Ricky Skaggs. Royalty income, copyright earnings began flowing into Ricky Skaggs' accounts without pause, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a quiet yet steady stream that continued even while he slept. Tickets to concerts in arenas holding tens of thousands of fans sold out completely within hours, while performance fees soared to between $50,000 and $100,000 per show, placing him on par with the world's biggest pop superstars. The grueling touring schedule of the entire 1980s alone was enough to bring Ricky several $1 million a year, lifting him from a boy raised in Appalachian poverty straight into the ranks of America's new upper class. The year 1985 marked the moment Ricky Skaggs reached the absolute pinnacle of power and fame, when he was honored as Entertainer of the Year, the highest accolade in country music. At that point, Ricky was no longer simply a successful star. In the eyes of both the public and industry insiders, he became the symbol of a return, bringing country music back to the raw, authentic sounds that had once stood on the brink of being forgotten. Even Chet Atkins, one of Nashville's greatest legends, acknowledged that Ricky Skaggs had helped preserve the soul of country music as it was gradually fading amid the wave of commercialization. That same year, Ricky's status was placed alongside the most powerful names of the era, such as Alabama, George Strait, and Kenny Rogers artists who dominated radio, stadiums, and the American record market. It was the year Ricky commanded his highest fees, maintained his most intense touring schedule, and wielded the greatest commercial influence of his entire career, when every decision he made could trigger a chain reaction throughout Nashville. Yet it was precisely at this highest summit that Ricky began to feel something he had never had time to face before: exhaustion. The pressure of expectations, of being labeled the savior of country music, weighed heavily on a man who was naturally accustomed to a quiet life. Behind the thunderous applause and dazzling stage lights, Ricky Skaggs was still the same mountain boy he had always been, unaccustomed to prolonged noise, and gradually realizing that glory never comes with peace. And money was never a free gift. The moment his bank account first crossed the $1 million mark was also the moment Ricky unconsciously stepped into a cycle that did not allow him to stop. To keep that machine running, he was forced to trade away the only asset that could never be replaced: his presence in his family's life. From then on, Ricky lived on his tour bus, the Silver Eagle, more than in his own home, as endless highways gradually replaced the very idea of a stable roof over his head. That prolonged absence slowly turned Ricky into a husband on the phone to Sharon White, the woman who quietly carried the entire household on her shoulders, acting both as mother and father, raising their children alone, while the man of the family chased one endless stage after another. The tragedy of wealth lies in this bitter paradox. While millions of fans screamed his name under blazing lights and worshipped him as an icon, behind the curtain, all that remained was a silent emptiness. After each performance, Ricky returned to luxurious hotel rooms that lacked nothing except a sense of belonging. He ate late dinners in silence, only to confront the haunting question of moments that had permanently slipped away from his children's childhood school events, birthdays, mornings when a father should have been there. The Skaggs children grew up accustomed to seeing their father on television screens, accepting awards and applause, while the chair at the family dinner table, the place where he should have been, was almost always empty. It was a slow erosion of the spirit, and the most frightening part was that Ricky did not dare to stop. The pressure to maintain the number one position, combined with the fear of being forgotten, bound him tightly to an inescapable cycle, until, while believing he was sacrificing himself for his family, he gradually realized a painful truth. The harder he tried to hold on to everything, the more he lost the people who mattered most. However, unlike the flash-in-the-pan stars who squandered their money on reckless excess, Ricky Skaggs used that loneliness and obsession to build a true empire, one grounded in tangible, lasting assets. He did not buy supercars to show off, nor did he purchase mansions merely to take photos. He used money to buy control, to buy security, and to buy things that could fill the voids within his soul. Skaggs Place Studios in Hendersonville stands as the clearest expression of that choice, a musical sanctuary built with virtually his entire fortune, equipped with some of the most advanced technology available. Yet it was within that perfectly soundproof space that Ricky confined himself for dozens of hours each day, quietly retreating from family life and, unintentionally, continuing to trade time with the people he loved most in exchange for a sense of calm he could only find among musical notes. And then, hidden deep inside a safe, alongside property deeds, lay the instrument collection known as Wooden Gold. The 1,923 Gibson Lloyd Lohr mandolins, each valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, were not merely priceless collectibles. They were obsessions. Ricky bought them not only for their extraordinary sound, but seemingly to compensate for nameless voids within himself. Every one of those instruments, no matter how valuable, was soaked in sweat and even blood from fingers hardened and cracked by years of playing. They were beautiful, flawless, yet cold, resting silently in velvet cases like mute witnesses to a life that had sacrificed everything for art. The peak of this financial tragedy, and the most striking proof of Ricky Skaggs' madness, came in the late 1990s. At that time, the country music market began to shift. Radio stations that had once celebrated him now turned away, chasing younger, more pop-oriented trends. An ordinary person, armed with the vast wealth he had accumulated, would have chosen to retire comfortably and enjoy old age alongside children and grandchildren. But Ricky Skaggs was not an ordinary man. He did something that sent a chill through all of Nashville. He used his own money, draining the fortune he had built over a lifetime, to launch his own record label, Skaggs Family Records. It was a life or death gamble, one in which Ricky Skaggs placed everything he had on the scales of fate, accepting the risk of losing it all and even pushing his family to the brink of ruin in exchange for one thing alone: the freedom to play the music he believed in without bowing to any boss. Sharon White, the wife who had already endured so much, once again stood silently by as her husband placed the future of the entire family on that wager. She did not stop him, but the anxiety etched into her eyes was impossible to hide. Ricky won. That gamble transformed him from a hired artist into a true owner, someone who held complete control over his musical legacy. Yet that victory also drained the last reserves of strength left after decades of relentless touring, delivering a heavy final blow to a body that was already exhausted. At that moment, Ricky Skaggs appeared like a king without a throne in Nashville, commanding the stage with a mandolin in his hands while simultaneously directing cash flow with the cold calculations of a businessman. And yet, the higher the walls of wealth that Ricky Skaggs built, the farther he drifted from his roles as a husband and a father. The price he paid did not stop at years of absence from his family. It also quietly etched itself into his health after decades of living under unrelenting pressure. That was the year 2020. At first, it was only vague aches and pains that Ricky Skaggs quickly brushed aside, convincing himself they were simply unavoidable signs of aging. Until one day in Nashville, during what was supposed to be a routine checkup, doctors suggested a cardiac angiogram. Ricky hesitated not out of fear, but because he did not want his familiar life to be interrupted. In the end, he nodded in agreement, a decision that seemed small, yet was about to open the door to the defining moment of the rest of his life. Just a few hours later, the stark truth was laid bare. Not one, but 4 major arteries supplying his heart were severely blocked. The doctor stared at the scan in shock and exclaimed, "Ricky, are you playing games with death? If you step onto that tour bus, you will never have a chance to come back." In that moment, Ricky sat in silence. For the first time in his life, music was no longer a refuge, and iron will meant nothing. He understood that he had lost control. The stages, the lights, and a lifetime of applause vanished in an instant, leaving only the cold, white glow of the operating room and the steady hum of machines. He was forced to entrust the beating of his heart to others for safekeeping. An emergency quadruple bypass surgery was performed, and the most haunting and also the most miraculous moment unfolded right there within his open chest. The surgeon later recounted that as he was holding Ricky's heart in his own hands to reconnect the flow of life, the moment blood was restored, the heart that had been barely flickering suddenly trembled violently. It beat powerfully. It danced in the surgeon's palm like a defiant declaration of life in the face of the Grim Reaper's scythe. When Ricky Skaggs awoke after that life-or-death surgery, he broke down in tears. Only then did he truly grasp this truth. All that dazzling glory would return to a perfect zero if that heart were to stop beating. Recovery time passed so slowly that Ricky Skaggs was forced to relearn how to exist within his own body. From the first cautious steps to quiet mornings sitting by the window, watching sunlight filter through the curtains, he began to realize a simple truth he had never had time to consider before. I am still here. 6 months after the ordeal, Ricky returned to the stage, not with a sense of triumph, but with rebirth. He said he felt 150% better than before, not only because the exhaustion had disappeared or his breathing had become deeper and lighter, but because for the first time in his life, he understood clearly that he had been given something rare, a second life, in which every breath was no longer taken for granted, but received as a gift. And to understand why Ricky Skaggs paid such a staggering price for his peak, we must go much farther back, returning to his earliest years, where everything had already been quietly set in motion long before the stage lights ever appeared. Ricky Skaggs was born in 1954 and grew up in Cordell, Kentucky, a poor mountain region where music was not a choice, but a part of everyday life. And the real story began when Ricky was only 5, at an age when most other children were still absorbed in carefree games. One fateful afternoon, his father, Hobart Skaggs, came home with an old item he had bought from a pawn shop for a bargain price. It was a mandolin worn down by time, its color faded, but in the eyes of young Ricky, it shone with a spellbinding light more captivating than any treasure in the world. It was not simply a toy. It was the key that destiny placed into his hands to open the door into the Temple of Legends. Something miraculous happened inside that shabby wooden house. With no teacher, no books, and no lofty music theory to guide him, Ricky felt his way across the hardened frets on his own. With an instinct that was wild and pure, the little boy listened to the mandolin's breath, and after just 2 short weeks, those tiny hands had already mastered the most complex sounds. When Ricky's tender, youthful voice blended in perfect harmony with his father's singing, the entire family froze in astonishment as they realized this child did not choose music. Music had chosen him as its messenger. But if it had ended with natural talent alone, Ricky Skaggs might have remained nothing more than a strange phenomenon from rural Kentucky. Fate needed a greater push, a true crowning rite. And that moment arrived when Ricky turned 6. That year, the living legend Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, came to this small town to perform. In the packed crowd, the Skaggs family's neighbors kept cheering and calling out, demanding that the king give little Ricky a chance to step onto the stage. Bill Monroe, carrying the bearing of a master, smiled down at the tiny boy standing swallowed up by the sea of people. He took off his famous mandolin, his treasure that had traveled with him across America, and respectfully slipped it over Ricky's shoulder. That image became an immortal chapter, a symbol of a sacred transfer of power. The instrument was oversized, heavy on the shoulders of a 6-year-old, but Ricky's hands did not tremble. The instant those tiny fingers danced across the fretboard, producing razor-sharp notes at a speed that stunned the ear, Bill Monroe and the entire hall fell silent. This was not a cute performance meant for amusement. It was the firm declaration of a genius newly revealed. Ricky had been given the fire directly by the king of this music, a recognition that countless artists spend an entire lifetime chasing and still never reach. That jolt carried Ricky beyond even the wildest dreams of a mountain child. At 7 years old, Ricky appeared on the national television show of Flat and Scruggs. Imagine a boy with a baby-smooth face, standing before millions of television viewers, yet carrying a calmness that felt almost unreal. When Ricky played Foggy Mountain Special, it was as if all of America held its breath. Every note landed with authority. The virtuoso speed and precision were so astonishing that even the most seasoned musicians had to tip their hats. People began calling him a prodigy. The press chased him, and the glow of fame surrounded him. But to Ricky, all of those titles meant nothing. For him, music at that time was simply a natural language, like breathing a way to speak to the world, without calculation, without pressure, only absolute purity. However, the tragedy of prodigies often lies in how easily they fall asleep on early victories, letting their talent fade inside short-lived praise. Ricky Skaggs was different. Even as a teenager, he possessed the cool head of a strategist. Instead of cashing in on the prodigy label for quick money, instead of chasing shallow glamour, Ricky chose the harshest path, the path of disciplined, ascetic training. He understood that to become a true king, he had to taste the scent of earth, the dust of the road, and the weight of loneliness. At 15, Ricky and his close friend Keith Whitley, another gifted natural talent, but one destined for tragedy, made a bold decision. They joined the Clinch Mountain Boys, the band of the legendary Ralph Stanley. This was not a vacation. It was the most brutal university a bluegrass musician could ever attend. Forget five-star hotels or business-class flights. Their lives were bound to a battered old bus, jolting and rattling along dangerous mountain roads through the Appalachian Range. Those were the years when Ricky had to sleep sprawled on bus seats, eat roadside meals, and accept meager show pay that barely kept them going from day to day. Yet inside that harsh furnace, where cold and hunger constantly lurked, Ricky learned the most important lesson of his life, the soul of bluegrass. He learned that dazzling technique is only the shell. What holds an audience is pain, loneliness, and longing poured into every line. He absorbed the aching sound of the mountains, the kind of music not meant for the weak. Ralph Stanley did not merely teach him how to play, he taught Ricky how to live and die with music. Once he had grasped that traditional root, Ricky's young blood and hidden rebellion began to rise. In the mid-1970s, he refused to confine himself within old, rigid frameworks. Ricky hungered for a breakthrough. He went on to join the Country Gentlemen and J.D. Crowe and the New South groups known for their forward-thinking approach at the time. There, Ricky found the perfect environment. He began experiments so bold they bordered on reckless, bringing rock speed and jazz complexity into the foundation of traditional bluegrass. He turned the mandolin into an attacking weapon, creating melodies that were both familiar and strange, leaving critics both amazed and cautious. Ricky was redrawing the boundaries of the genre, step by step. But the greatest turning point, the final piece that would create the 1980s money-printing machine known as Ricky Skaggs, came when he joined Emmylou Harris's hot band in 1977. This was his true finishing school. There, Ricky was no longer simply a genius musician. He was exposed to top-tier music production, and he learned how a world-class, internationally professional show is run. Most importantly, he saw the golden formula Emmylou Harris was applying, the fusion of artistry and commercial appeal. Ricky realized a truth that would change his life forever. Bluegrass did not have to remain forever as music for old porches and worn-out corners. It could absolutely share the stage with pop and rock, shining under the blazing lights of stadiums if he knew how to package it. He understood he had to keep the virtuosic, technical essence of bluegrass, but wrap it in a smoother, more accessible outer layer of modern country to sell to the public. Those years of grinding on broken-down buses, those nights of playing to empty rooms, and those moments of soaring beside living legends forged the perfect Ricky Skaggs of the 1980s. From a 5-year-old boy holding an oversized instrument, Ricky transformed into a man with the hands of a classical master and the cool mind of a brilliant strategist. He was ready not just to play music, but to dominate it, to rewrite the rules and place his name inside the temple of immortal legends. All of those hardships, it turned out, were only the overture to a great symphony about to explode into sound and shake the entire world of music. At present, at the age of 71, after tasting every shade of ultimate glory and also the life and death moments that hung by a thread, today's Ricky Skaggs is no longer the full-throttle money-printing machine of the 1980s. He has chosen a new role, one more difficult, yet also more magnificent. The role of a keeper of the flame, a husband, a father, and a faithful servant of faith. That country-style home in the suburbs of Nashville is not merely a place to return to. It is a sanctuary of peace that Ricky had to trade his entire youth to earn. There he found the most precious asset that no check can ever buy, time beside Sharon White. More than 40 years have passed since the day they made their vows in 1981, and in an entertainment industry where marriage can be as fragile as a soap bubble, Ricky and Sharon's love stands like a lighthouse. They are praised as a golden couple, living proof that true love can still take root and bloom even on the harshest ground of fame. Now, the happiness of the Bluegrass King is not seeing his name on the Billboard charts, but those evenings at sunset sitting on the porch, watching his grown children, Molly and Luke, and listening to the laughter of his little grandchildren running around his feet. In those moments, he realizes that his greatest legacy is not the Grammy trophies in a display case, but the next generation carrying his blood and his love of music flowing through their veins. But do not mistake this for the old lion finally choosing sleep. Ricky Skaggs has never and will never truly retire. To him, music is not a career, it is breath, it is life itself. Only now, the way he plays has changed. He no longer steps onto the stage to conquer, to prove his status, or to chase validation. He walks on stage with his Kentucky Thunder Band in the spirit of an elder, a guide. His magical fingers still fly across the mandolin fretboard at a terrifying speed, but deep inside is the calm of a master who has understood the ways of the world. He has renovated and reopened Skaggs Place Studio, the legendary recording space in Hendersonville. It is no longer a factory for producing his own commercial hits, but has become a nursery for young talent. Ricky wants to use the hard-earned lessons of his life to support new artists, to help them avoid the same painful traps of fame, and above all, to preserve the bluegrass flame for generations to come. At the Grand Ole Opry, Ricky's presence now carries symbolic weight. He stands there like a great old tree, roots sunk deep into the Mother Earth, casting shade, protecting, and reminding the next generation of the origins of this music. And perhaps the biggest, deepest change in Ricky Skaggs lives in his heart. The heart that once stopped on the operating table and was granted a second chance by God to come back to life. That ordeal completely reshaped his worldview. From a star who was served, he became someone who serves. Strong faith pushed him to step out of the comfort zone of wealth and toward those who suffer. Ricky does not do charity by signing a check and forgetting it. He throws himself into it. When a devastating tornado tore through his beloved Kentucky homeland, people saw Ricky Skaggs in pain as if his own flesh were being cut. He plunged into the storm alongside Samaritan's Purse, an organization he has passionately supported for many years. He organized concerts, he rallied donations, not to polish his name, but to dry the tears of his people. His melodies now carry a healing mission. He uses his instrument and his voice to soothe shattered hearts, to bring hope to the most hopeless places. He understands that God kept him in this world, not so he could earn a few more $1 million, but so he could become a tool of love. Alongside that, Ricky quietly invests in education, supporting museums and scholarship funds. He wants to ensure that even when he is no longer present in this world, bluegrass culture, the soul of the mountains, will continue to live on, continue to be valued, and continue to be studied by future generations. Ricky Skaggs' life today is a complete picture of fulfillment. No more storm-like tours that drain every last ounce of strength. No more pressure to stand at the summit of fame. The money printing machine of the past has stopped, making room for a simple, reflective man overflowing with gratitude. He has traveled a vast circle through life, from a poor boy hugging an oversized instrument, rising to the top of the world, and then returning to the simplest core values: family, faith, and sharing. And perhaps it is in this quiet peace that Ricky Skaggs is finally playing the greatest piece of music of his entire life. Looking back on Ricky Skaggs' journey, people understand why the fortune he leaves behind cannot be measured only in numbers. It was forged from sleepless nights, endless roads, absences that can never be repaid, and a heart that once stood at the edge of death, only to be granted another chance to live. To the world, it is a fortune worth dreaming of. But to his family, it contains the tears of sacrifice, because there are things that, even stacked in gold, can never be bought back: time, presence, and moments that are gone forever. And perhaps Ricky's greatest legacy does not lie in a safe or a studio, but in the lesson he leaves for all of us. Success only truly matters when we still make it back in time to the people we love. If this story touched you, please hit like to support the channel, share the video with anyone who grew up with Ricky Skaggs' melodies, and subscribe so you won't miss the stories behind the spotlight, where the truth is always deeper than what we see on stage.